It's no secret that Our Real Monsters is my favorite cartoon of all time. I wouldn't call it a masterpiece, but I do love it a lot. In fact, I love it so much that not only did I do a guide and long play on the Sega Genesis game years ago, but I recently did the same for the Super Nintendo port. But before I get into the games, I do want to give a brief summary of the show. This does contain spoilers for some of the last episodes of Season 1, so you can feel free to skip to this timestamp if you want. Our Real Monsters is a cartoon that was aired in 1994 and will go on to have 4 seasons. It revolves around 3 monsters named Ickis, Krumm, and Oblina, who attend school in order to learn how to scare humans from the grumble. While the show has plenty of humor, it does give some story and explanation on the monsters as the show goes on. Perhaps the biggest plot point happens near the end of Season 1. It's revealed that the monsters' entire existence relies solely on the humans. If no one believes that monsters exist, then they'll start to disappear from reality, whether it be instantaneous or even limb by limb. The students don't believe in the monsters disappearing, and surely enough, that begins to happen when they stop scaring humans. This means that the monsters in the show have to tread a weird line between scaring humans while still hiding from them in the open. The reason is because if they don't scare humans, then the monsters will eventually cease to exist. But if all humans are fully aware that monsters are real, well, I think Ickis can explain it best.
If he puts us on TV, then, well, everyone's gonna know that we exist, and then they'll hunt us down, and, well, then...
This is rather dark for a kid's cartoon. At first I assumed they scared humans for the fun of it, but the fact that their entire existence relies on this is kinda crazy. If you haven't seen them yet, I highly recommend watching the last few episodes of Season 1 yourself. I'd love to talk more about the show, but I should get back to the video games. Our Real Monsters is a platformer that was released on both the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo in 1995. Both ports are identical in both gameplay and appearance, but there are some major differences that set them apart. Before I give a brief comparison, let's go over the game itself. The goal of Our Real Monsters is to get through all stages before running out of lives and continues. You can earn extra lives throughout the game, and you can earn continues by completing the bonus stages in between chapters. In order to complete a stage, you have to find the assigned prize in order to open the exit. The prizes are usually found near the end of the stage, so you shouldn't have a hard time finding them. Along the way, you will have to fight enemies, avoid numerous hazards, and do some platforming that can range from easy to punishingly strict. There are checkpoints that you can get by touching the yellow spinning arrows, but using a continue will send you back to the beginning of the stage. When you combine the difficulty with the fact that you don't recover health upon completing a stage, it's very easy to lose a life in this game. It feels like the developers might have been aware of this since there are numerous 1-ups to earn and they respawn upon losing a life. So yeah, you could get the same 1-up over and over from failing at the same section, but I don't think that's a good substitute for the nasty traps these games contain. I can't stress enough how difficult this game will be if you're just starting, but I should go over the controls before I go into more detail. The controls will be based off the original consoles, but I will also show the controls for the Nickelodeon Splat Pack. For the Super Nintendo port, Y draws garbage, B jumps, A performs a scare, X will perform a triple monster move, and the L and R buttons will allow you to switch monsters. For the Sega Genesis port, A will scare, B will draw garbage, and C will jump. Due to the lack of buttons, you have to hold down and press A to change monsters, and hold up and press A to perform a triple monster move. For both versions, you can change the control layout by going to the options. If you're playing this via the Splat Pack, you will have to keep the Xbox controller in mind when changing the layout. Starting with movement, you can move left and right, hold down to crouch, jump, climb up ladders by holding up, and you can climb across pipes and ropes by jumping on them. You can't attack while climbing across pipes, but not while climbing up ladders. If you hold down long enough, you can make the camera move down in order to see what's below. The game will also have springs that can bounce you high up upon jumping on them. Sometimes it will take 2 bounces for you to jump higher, or you can try holding the jump button if that doesn't work. Jumping specifically will feel vastly different between both ports. For the Sega Genesis port, it feels really good. You have complete control over your jump height and you keep the same momentum throughout the animation. Unfortunately, jumping feels awful in the Super Nintendo port. The jump height will always be the same, which will make certain sections a bit more difficult to get through without taking damage. There are also 3 factors you must adapt to when it comes to jumping. First off, jumping in place is not the same as jumping while moving. This can be deadly if you're trying to jump off a small platform, as you have to make sure to move first without accidentally falling off. Another factor is the momentum. Jumping feels very floaty in this port, which wouldn't be a problem if this game didn't require precise platforming. There are actually some jumps that are much more difficult than the Genesis port because of this. Last but not least, yeah, no kidding. If you fall from too great of a height, your falling animation will change and you will take a point of damage upon landing. It's possible to prevent this by throwing garbage on the way down, but it won't always work. And before someone says that I'm being too harsh, hear me out. The Sega Genesis port is technically more incomplete. Less stages, missing enemies and hazards, and a few other aspects show that this game was either rushed, or they didn't have enough time. And judging by how complete the SNES version looks, I'm willing to believe that the Sega Genesis port was made afterwards. So naturally, they improved on the jumping and removed fall damage. That's just my assumption, so take it with a grain of salt. I know I went on quite the tangent about jumping, but I need to reiterate that this is a very difficult platformer. Good controls can make a difference between the player blaming themselves or the player blaming the game. And while I'll always try to blame myself when struggling with a game, I definitely got more frustrated with the SNES port compared to the Genesis port. Now to go over the other actions. Throwing garbage will be your main means of attacking. You can aim it in multiple directions by holding up or down. In the SNES port, you can actually aim it downwards while midair, which isn't possible in the Sega Genesis port. If you collect fish or find a bag of garbage, you will gain garbage ammo that will enhance your attack. The Genesis port will make you throw 3 garbage projectiles at once, while the SNES port will increase the power of your garbage, assuming you're not crouching. Because for some reason the power increase does not apply to crouching attacks in the SNES port. This is kind of a big deal since attacking while crouching is much faster than attacking while standing. Garbage can also be used to flex switches and levers. Otherwise, you can simply press down while nearby one. Your scare attack will have your monster scare all enemies on screen. It won't work against every single enemy in the game, but they can be very useful in difficult sections and in the boss fights. You can only perform a scare by using up a monster manual. Similar to your health, you do not get any back upon completing a stage. You will either have to find more throughout the game, or lose a life to get 5 monster manuals back. As for switching monsters and using a triple monster move, this is where I should go over the playable monsters. In order to perform either action, all 3 monsters will have to be close by. Only the monster that's currently being controlled will take damage from enemies and hazards. As for the others, they'll teleport next to you if they're far away, or you can try performing a triple monster move to make them appear next to you. It should be noted that the monsters in the Genesis port can still grab items for you, whereas you have to get them yourself in the SNES port. With that said, let's go over each one.
We can take him out in the woods and leave him there. He'll never find his way back. No one will suspect us.
Ickis is easily my favorite monster of the show, as well as the best monster in both ports. His small size is mandatory in certain sections as he can avoid hazards that would otherwise be unavoidable. On top of him being tied with Oblina in terms of jump height, he's more or less the leader of the group. You should always keep Ickis selected unless one of the others are required. His triple monster move is Frightening Fling. This will have the other 2 monsters use his ears to fling everyone across. This will be necessary in certain areas where a normal jump won't quite make it. In the Genesis port, there's a frame perfect glitch that you can perform. By pressing jump right when the animation ends, you can perform a mid-air jump, which can be used to skip certain sections. It is incredibly difficult to do, and I can only see this being viable in a 2-assisted run.
Sorry, am I the only one that's hungry?
Krumm is technically the worst monster of the trio. This is mainly due to his jump height being rather low. It might be useful in the SNES port for certain areas, but it's pretty much pointless in the Genesis port since you can control your jump height. It's more than possible to beat the game without ever switching to him, but he does have one useful trick. His triple monster move is Eerie Eye Injector. Ickis will use Oblina as a bat, and then hit Krumm's eyeball across the screen. You can control where it goes by holding a direction during the animation, and it will allow you to see what's coming up. It's very helpful to use if you're new at the game, but it can greatly extend your playtime if you're using it constantly. However, it does have a unique bonus for both ports. In the Sega Genesis port, this can be used to skip bosses. It doesn't work against every boss, but if you know exactly where to do it, you can use Krumm's triple monster move, wait a few seconds while the eye is out, then hold forward in order to skip the boss completely. For the SNES port, Krumm will become invincible for a brief moment upon the eye returning. Depending on the situation, This can allow him to bypass hazards and obstacles with no effort. This can be clutch if you're low on health and you don't want to risk taking damage.
Aren't you supposed to use 2 fingers?
And that is exactly why you give Inferior nightmares.
Oblina is the tallest of the Dream Monsters, making it difficult for her to dodge certain enemies and hazards. However, her height can allow her to reach items and pipes that wouldn't be possible as Ickis. You'll switch to her very often since her triple monster move will be mandatory at many areas in the game. Her Tower of Terror will make her jump off the other 2 monsters in order to reach a higher platform. For both versions, you can press the jump button near the end of the animation to go even higher. In the Sega Genesis port, she will perform a unique animation with performing this near a high platform. When this happens, the others will use her as a rope to get above and she will automatically climb up the platform. And with all of that explained, I can now give you an idea of what both ports are like. The Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis port are very difficult platformers that can take well over an hour to finish. Due to the lack of a save or password feature, these games can be very frustrating at first. There's nothing worse than spending over an hour to reach the more difficult parts of the game, only to get game over and be sent all the way back to the stages you already know how to beat. If you're playing these games via the Nickelodeon Splat Pack, you'll have the option to save your progress and rewind at any time during gameplay, but that wasn't the case for those who played this on the original consoles. The plot is also the same. The main trio are assigned a midterm that will have them scare 5 specific humans, with the final target being Simon the Monster Hunter. There are 5 chapters in total and you'll get a grade at the end of each one. Not that the grade matters since it has no effect on the ending. As for the presentation, both have their positives and negatives. For example, the SNES port has a neat fog effect in the dump stages, but the frames per second is not as smooth as the Sega Genesis port. There are also some sprites and animations absent between the two, and the sound effects are different for the most part. In terms of stages, the Super Nintendo version has more to offer. Not only are there more stages in total, but all of the bonus stages are completely different from each other. As for the difficulty, it's not even a contest. The SNES port is way more difficult than the Sega Genesis port. Not only because it's longer, not only because of how jumping feels, but also because of some major differences in how hazards work. For example, the deep tar in the SNES version will instantly cost you a life if even a pixel of your monster comes in contact, but in the Sega Genesis version, you can freely jump across the deep tar. There's also the difficulty selection in the options. For both ports, they will affect the number of lives you start with and the health of the enemies, but the SNES port has a not so fun bonus of lowering your maximum health from 11 hit points to 8 on Nightmare mode. When combined with the lack of health refills in between stages, it's difficult to keep your health high in this version. Now, I'm not going to pretend like the Genesis port doesn't have its own kind of nonsense. Not only is invincibility upon taking damage much shorter, but the pushback on hit can make certain hazards way more dangerous than the SNES port. I could go on for a while, but there's plenty to talk about in the long play. I'll go over some other aspects I didn't mention such as the items, but you can always check that out and more in my written guides below. If you prefer to watch the long play of both games without my commentary, you can instead click the link in the pinned comment.
Do you have it? 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 Do you have it?
Alright, and now for my long plays of Our Monsters for both the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis. Though for the case of the Nickelodeon Splat Pack, they are called 16-bit Mega and 16-bit Super. Now, there's already a lot I need to mention so far. I did play these through the Nickelodeon Splat Pack. I didn't use any rewind or saving or loading. I just played through the game from start to finish. And the Sega Genesis version went really well. It only took me like 2 attempts to get a no-miss run. The Super Nintendo version, however, I tried for a very, very long time to get a no-miss run, and I just couldn't do it. Maybe if I gave it another week, I could probably pull it off, but I didn't want to delay this any further, and throughout the long play, you will see me, I'm pretty sure I edited in the amount of lives I lost in each stage. But I know for the SNES version, I got really far without losing a life, but during the end, that's when I really started to fall apart. But I will talk about that when we get there. It still went pretty smooth nonetheless. And yeah, I am currently commentating over my edited long play. I put both long plays at the same time, and you can see the intro right here. In the SNES version, there's actually music along with Ickis running to class. You can even hear the footsteps, which isn't present in the Sega Genesis version. And for the case of both versions, you can see on the bottom that it shows where the sound is coming from. So you can keep an eye out for that if you want to know which one you're listening to.
Ready?
And you actually hear the grumble say ready, which isn't present in the Sega Genesis version. Now, one interesting difference right off the bat, if you perform a scan to SNES version at the beginning, the rat above actually drops a 1-up, which doesn't happen in the Sega Genesis version, interestingly enough. And yeah, this is only the first stage, so I don't need to mention too much. So I might as well talk about like how this long play is gonna go and all that. Cause I don't know if I'm going to commentate over the entire thing, but I will talk about the most important parts at least. So throughout the long play, you'll see me like because again I already edited this long play, like you'll see me switch the sounds from like the Sega Genesis version to the Super Nintendo version and all that. And for the most part, the Super Nintendo stages took me the longest to complete, so whenever, if the Sega Genesis stage finishes early, then it will full screen the Super Nintendo port. Now, there is something I need to mention. There was two things. If you notice during the screen where it showed the grumble saying ready on the Super Nintendo port, the prize kept like flashing different items, and I don't recall that happening on original hardware. That might be the only thing that's off about this collection. I think that's like a glitch. I mean, the game still runs perfectly fine or whatever, but that did throw me off the first time I played it. In fact, I'm sure, actually, I think I left a review on this game on Steam. I don't know why I didn't mention that. Like, I guess I just assumed that maybe it was a one-time thing, and if I went back to the game, it would fix itself. But it seems pretty constant because I also played this game on the Switch, and it has that exact same glitch. And yeah, obviously, I did do these long plays on Steam. So oh wow, I actually missed that bonus on the Genesis version. What I was supposed to do there is use Ickis's, you see on the right too, I actually get it right, where I use Ickis's triple monster move in order to get on that platform. And it leads to, I think 2 monster manuals, a 1-up, and a jar of fleas if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, there's a monster manual, 1-up, monster manual, and a full health restore. So in the Genesis version on the left, I'm almost off the stage, but there is a boss in the stage, but I decided to use a boss skip right here. So I perform Krumm's triple monster move at that specific location, leave the eye out for a bit, and then I walk forward, and that stage is done. So now we get into the Super Nintendo port because I'm still stuck in the first stage. I don't want to have like, I didn't want to have both games running without pausing at all, because then like the Genesis version would be over immediately. I still want to at least show each stage like side by side if possible. So I decided to go with this. Now, I think I do show off the dog boss in the Genesis version later, but it's pretty much the same. Like, you just jump over the dog and hit it like pretty much after jumping over it. It's a really easy boss. It's not that bad. And yeah, coming up should be is this a Super Nintendo? Okay, I was about to say, I'm pretty sure both games happen at the same time. So, I should be talking about the items too. So, one thing interesting that if you see the flies on the flies like buzzing around, in the Genesis version, they don't give you any health, but they actually do give you a point of health in the Super Nintendo version. And if I'm not mistaken, that's the only time you see them in this game. You never see them again, so it's kind of weird. Another thing is, the bugs on the floor, you can actually press down to eat them. I think it's like the caterpillar and the roaches. And the Super Nintendo version, there's actually like a small animation of the monsters like grabbing it, whereas the Sega Genesis version. Okay, I'm saying like Sega Genesis and Super back to back. It's like I'm starting to confuse myself, but yeah, Super Nintendo version, there is an animation of them like trying to eat the bug when you press down, but that's not in the Sega Genesis version, I should say. This stage is mostly the same for the most part for both versions, so I should get back to what I was oh yeah, that's right. So in the Nickelodeon Splat Pack, there's an option to play these games by 4x3, but for some reason Oh yeah, yeah, both ports have the same music. For some reason, when you play these by 4x3, the Super Nintendo version isn't exactly 4x3, but I don't know if that's because like it was like that originally on the, because I don't have a Super Nintendo to test this, but I don't know if playing this on real hardware actually it's not fully 4x3 and it's like actually like a bit skinnier than that. So if anyone can talk about that, like let me know. I have no idea. So I actually had to widen the screen a bit for the Super Nintendo long play. Anyways, as I was saying, so you see me going down the slides in the Super Nintendo port. You have to press jump at the end of the slide in order to go further. Like you can see right there, if I didn't press jump, you would actually land right on the spikes and take damage, which is kind of mean, all things considered. And yeah, there's not too much for me to say about this stage. I know that fans in the Super Nintendo port are much more annoying to deal with because in the Genesis port you can see that I'm getting up them relatively easy. You just go left, right, like it's not that hard. But in the Super Nintendo version, oh yeah, if you hold right at that section, you can actually get yeah, more free items. There was a 1-up. And other than that, the stage is pretty much the same. So, but when you see me get to the fans, it's going to be a bit more difficult. So yeah, right here, this part's not too bad on the right. I don't know why I'm struggling right here. It really is. I swear it's not that difficult. Alright, there we go. Beautiful. But yeah, this is the part that's kind of weird. So it's possible to get a good streak like that, but then you have to like move like back and back into the fan. I don't know how else to explain it. But yeah, it's just like I don't know. Like thankfully the fans don't pop up too often in the SNES sports, so it's kind of like a minor annoyance really. It's not the worst thing ever. Damn, what else did I mention? So yeah, there are plenty of items in this game. The apples restore 1 hit point. The jar of fleas give you full health in both ports. And what else? Oh, that's another thing too. So the fleas give you I mentioned that those weird flies buzzing around at the beginning of the stage gives you 1 point of health and they never appear again. The Sega Genesis port also has a record disc, like records. I don't know what else to call them, but they actually give you 1 point of health for the Sega Genesis version. Whereas in the SNES version, they only pop up at the final chapter, and they're considered prizes and not actually considered health points. So I'll probably mention that again when we get to the final chapter, something I don't forget. Alright, so this should be the school stage. Yeah. So again, the beginning is pretty similar. You actually have to use Ickis' triple monster move twice, or more like 2 or 3 times in order to get to the end. And again, oh man, the Super Nintendo port is so difficult, man. Maybe that's, I don't know. Something I will mention is that the SNES port is hard for, this is just a personal problem for me. It's kind of hard to look at. Like, it kind of hurts my eyes. I don't know why. Maybe it's the frames per second. But, yeah, like, it's just kind of rough, man. Now, something important is that when it comes to the human enemies, not all of them, just some of them. You see the SNES port on the right. They don't flinch at all when you hit them, like at all. They just do perform their attack, and like you just have to hold that. Now again, it's not for every single human enemy, but it is a little annoying. Whereas the Genesis version, if you look to the left, they actually flinch. Like that kid in particular actually flinches when you hit them. Now another thing you might have realized, the Genesis port, I mean, again, when you have a garbage ammo in the Genesis port, it doesn't increase your damage. It just before I get into that, when you get that underwear, just quickly go on the ladder. You see me also do this on the SNES port. And the cool thing about the Genesis port is that you can actually jump up the ladders, which is possible in the SNES port, but it's not as fast. And you see me fall right down there to get another underwear. Just skip through this whole section and then go up the ladder, and all we have to do is get the prize and then make our way to the right in order to get to the end. And again, I hope I'm not going too fast, but you will see me do that again because in the SNES port, since it works just as well. And you also see me do one more thing that I don't think is in the Sega Genesis port. And yeah, I just got through that stage really fast. Like, holy crap. And yeah, you can also realize that the music for the SNES port is actually different in the stage. But you will hear that Gymnasium theme later on in the later, I think like it's either the next stage or the stage after, because there is a Super Nintendo exclusive stage coming up soon. Now, what else was there to mention? I mentioned the underwear that gave you invincibility and you can use it to breeze through like a bunch of the stage. Again, that will pop up in the stage soon enough. But oh yeah, the garbage. So, oh yeah, damn, there's so much going on. It's been a while since I commentated over like two. I don't think I ever. I think the last time I did this was DJ Boy for the Sega Genesis. But yeah, I always use a scare there because again, dealing with the human enemies in this game is kind of annoying. And instead of breezing through this part, like going up the ladder, I instead use this time to defeat the human enemies because there's actually a secret in those blue sacks. If you walk through the wall and like jump, you can actually find a jar of fleas which will give you max health, which is really cool. I don't know if that's actually in like that secret area is in the Sega Genesis version. I should probably check after this. But I definitely remember that for the Super Nintendo version because I'm always getting up to the part with like mid to low health. Now these enemies right here, they always shoot 4 to 5 times, so just watch for the pattern and wait accordingly. And once they stop, you can keep moving, which is, again, as long as you know the pattern, you should be fine. And coming up should be some basketballs dropping, but as long as you move left and right, you should be able to avoid them because they always home in on you. And again, just like the Genesis port, right below this checkpoint should be an other way that will make me invincible. And you want to quickly use the invincibility to get through this section quickly. Like, just don't waste any time, just try to get through it quickly. You don't have to jump up these ladders, like just moving should be fast enough. And there you go. Beautiful. Now, unlike the Genesis version, the prize isn't actually to the right, it isn't to the left, it's to the right, I should say. And I'm already attacking because I know there's a human enemy right there. I just defeated them. And coming up should be the end of the stage. So one of the biggest problems I have with Nightmare mode on the Super Nintendo port is, I mean, it's not just the, like, I think the lowered maximum health is the worst thing. But these enemies are really, really tanky in the Super Nintendo game. Like, in the Genesis port, they take like 3 hits, maybe 5, it depends on the enemy. But almost all of the human enemies in this version take 7 hits. Assuming you don't use powered up ammo. And if you do have powered up ammo, it takes 4 hits. And mind you, that's assuming you're attacking while standing. And you see that I usually prefer attacking while crouching, which I'm sure I mentioned in the intro that attacking while crouching does not like. If you have powered up garbage ammo, you can see like right now I have 2, and you attack while crouching, the game will still use up the ammo, but it will still consider it like a weak attack, so it will still take 7, which is I want to believe that's an oversight. There's no way that was intentional. So yeah, if you go in that secret room right there, the toilet, you gotta press down to go inside them. You can actually get some health if you need it. And this part isn't too hard. You just gotta, wow, I actually got hit there. You just gotta watch for the planes and go under them at the right time. And you just want to fall straight down here. And just keep going across the pipes and you should be good. I'm just jumping across and there should be a platform right there and we can move on. So one of the most important, I wouldn't call this a strategy, but one of the most important key things you should do when it comes to these games, especially if it's your first time, always take your time with this game. Like, even if you feel confident, even if you're like watching the long play or reading my guide, if you rush through this game, you're going to fail a lot. It is just, this game does not want you to like, and it is very ruthless with some of the traps it has. And again, unless you know they're coming, it's hard to react to them. So this part's simple. They just attack, they shoot down, then middle, and then up, so you can just avoid that easily. And for this enemy, you see that's the problem. The human enemy, like some of the human enemies that do flinch in the SNES version, they don't flinch for long enough. Now in this part, you have to go in the right toilet. I'm pretty sure it's the left one. Alright, cool. And that'll also pop up again in the next stage where you have to go through the right toilets, but it's not that bad, especially if you already know where to go. So this section will have some human enemies. You can always look down by holding crouch to make sure there's no more, or like if there's one there. Pretty simple. And but yeah, as I was saying, like the human enemies are just really, really tanky in this game. They can take so many hits. And this part, yeah, I was screwing up really hard there. I should have taken 3 hits already, but it happens. So I'm just trying to get through this, and yeah, you can just get through that section that way, without getting hit by that human. And coming up should be, yeah, like they just walk into you, like the enemies are aware that all they have to do is walk to you to deal damage. So, and because they're so tanky on Nightmare mode, you kind of have to respect that and just move away. Now I think it's possible to get those apple pieces by using Oblina, but I don't really recommend it. And that enemy up there is obnoxious. I just use a scare just to deal with them quickly, because they take a lot. Again, they take a lot of hits, and it's hard to hit them while avoiding their shots. So I just prefer using a scare for that enemy in particular. Now coming up should be the end of the stage, and I'm not too worried about taking hits here because I know a jar of fleas is coming up at the top. There it is. Beautiful. And I think I forgot that there was one more enemy near the end of the stage, and I actually took a hit or two. Should be coming up soon. So you just go through that toilet, and you want to go all the way to the right. Just ignore the other toilets, because if you go in the wrong toilet, you actually be sent back. So it's not a bad thing. It's just more of like the game just wasting your time. But I did take the right one, so I should be good. There's a prize. Make sure to get it. And there's one more enemy. Yeah, that enemy coming up. I was thinking of the wrong enemy when that happened, and I took a hit there because I've never seen them aim specifically down before. I usually defeat them before that happens. Anyways, you can see we are back with the Sega Genesis version. And yeah, the stages are mostly similar for the most part. And I actually performed a jump scare in the Sega Genesis version, which isn't possible in the SNES version. The cool thing about performing a scare while jumping, you have to press scare immediately when you jump, is that they're much more faster in terms of startup, and they don't leave you open. You don't have to do this, but it is pretty cool that you can. And something I should mention is that in the SNES version, you see that I used the box to defeat the human on the other side. But the weird part is that I had a failed run, like just like a really bad run that I didn't bother uploading. I had a really bad run where I hit the box and then it actually didn't defeat them, like they were still alive, which again, I've never seen it happen before. It only happened once. And mind you, I did like many attempts on the SNES version. I want to say I did like 10 to 15, and eventually I just ended up like having this run be the one to upload because the other runs weren't nearly as good. And yeah, I'm just going really fast in the Sega Genesis version. Holy crap. Oh, you know what? That is another annoying thing about so another key difference in terms of the difficulty is that in the Sega Genesis version, I'm probably gonna lose count how many times I say Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo, but in the Sega Genesis version, the rats actually have 3 HP. Like, not all of them, but many of them have 3 hit points. And yeah, you can see that I switched up the music again. I should say the sound. And yeah, the rats are just really annoying in the Sega Genesis version. Oh, that was a sick moment. I actually scared all of them at once. I forgot I did that. So, because for reference, I actually did the Sega Genesis run like about a month or 2 before I did the SNES port. Mainly because I'm just really good at it. Like I'm very comfortable with this port, so maybe that could be the reason why I'm not very good at the SNES port, which is okay. But yeah, like the rats in the SNES port only have 1 HP no matter what, and thank goodness, because if they had 3 HP each, oh my goodness, I would have lost it. Because again, they're really small, they ignore you can't make them flinch by attacking them. So that would have been a mess if that was the case. So yeah, that's another cool thing about the Genesis port, is that when you make the enemies flinch, you actually have enough time to get past them. Because it won't count, like while they're getting staggered, it actually doesn't count as them being active. So during that stagger animation, you can walk through them and you won't take any damage. So in the SNES version, I'm taking advantage of the invincibility I got from the underwear in order to get through the section really fast. And yeah, it just ran out, so I actually was able to get through that part without taking any damage from the humans. Because usually when they run back and forth, it's better to go on that platform to avoid them completely. And on the right, you saw that I used Ickis' triple monster move to get a 1-up, which I'm pretty sure I did the same in the Sega Genesis version, if I'm not mistaken. It's hard to pay attention to both games at the same time, so I mean, chances are if you're watching this, maybe you're just paying attention to one, whichever you prefer. I personally prefer the Genesis version because it doesn't hurt to look at. But again, I don't want to be too biased, alright? I'm not saying like it's a crime to like the SNES version over the Sega Genesis version. Like whatever version you want, alright? Like this is just my preference. Like my preference, I should say. In any case, in the Sega Genesis port, we are already up to the boss, and if you have some powered up garbage ammo, all 3 will actually count as hitting the boss. It's not like, because you see that when you hit the boss, he goes like, you know, his sprite flickers, but that doesn't mean that he's immune to damage while his sprite is flickering. You can still keep hitting him, and the damage will count. And if you use a scare against the boss, he will instantly go to the other side. Other than that, the strategy is the exact same as the SNES version, so you'll see me do this on the other screen as well. Anyways, that is the Sega Genesis Chapter 1 finished, and now we're back to the Super Nintendo port. And another thing interesting is that this song in particular, I think like even right now, this song is technically longer in this port because there's different pitches that play, like, you know, like high pitch, low pitch during the song as it goes on, which isn't present in the Sega Genesis port. And that's one thing I would give this. Okay, that's one thing I would give the Super Nintendo game. I really love some of the tracks in this game. I like this one. There's one more I like that I can't remember, and then there's another one that plays during the end of the game that I really like. Like, I really loved how they used the instruments in it, I should say. Again, not winning any awards, but I really love it. Alright, so is there anything else I need to mention? No, not really, at least not at the moment. Again, because this stage and the other Sega Genesis stage that was school-based, it is, wow, he just stays right there, really? So I think I just slightly fall right there and should be able to get hidden. And yeah, like it's pretty much the same. So like, again, this section, I didn't get to mention this part, but you can use Oblina's height to, well actually you do have to use the tower to get there, wow. I thought it would be good enough for like just a regular jump, but I guess I was wrong. So this part's easy, just walk back whenever you get past these shelves just in case a book falls on you. And unlike the Genesis version, some books will fall before the boss fight starts. My strategy is just to stay all the way to the right and get ready to move left, like right there, just in case one falls on you. I think it's random, if I'm not mistaken, because I remember when I was playing this, when I was like testing this out while I was doing the guide on it, that like I lost a life here, and when I went back to the part, the books was like, I think like 2 or 3 books dropped all the way to the right, whereas in this run, only one dropped to the right. So like the Genesis version, the boss fight is not too bad. You just want to jump over the book and get a hidden. And if you want, you can use the scares, but the reason why I was saving my scares is because I'm thinking about the future since they don't come back upon completing a stage. And yeah, the grade screen is more or less the same. It doesn't really affect the game, so it's not a big deal. Now, in the Super Nintendo version, the first bonus stage is to jump into 5 baskets, which is pretty wonky. You can see how, you can already see how strict it is and how they want you to get inside. The biggest problem with this bonus stage is that there's a freaking time limit. And if you get touched by one basketball, it's done. So, I mean, I've done it once before, but yeah, the bonus stages in the SNES version are really, really rough. Now, for the Sega version, it will always be this minigame. The only difference is where the dinosaur fossils are placed and how many of them are there. So, it's a really simple bonus game once you get the hang of it, so you can get plenty of continues in that port compared to the SNES port. Again, I'll let you adapt to the SNES port's bonus games, but they are really difficult, in my opinion. So this stage is pretty much the... Oh yeah, okay, that was wondering, like, I don't know why the left one was paused for a bit. But yeah, like, this stage is more or less the same. In fact, down to like the 2 levels on the top, and depending on which ones you activate, it will open a certain gate. Now this is a weird part. So in the Sega Genesis version, I took the middle path to the right, Whereas in the SNES port, I took the bottom path. Now, I might as well talk about the bottom ones. It's a bit more difficult, maybe. You gotta hit the tire to make it float on the water, and then you want to hold crouch. Now, one mistake I made in like in a prior run, like an unrecorded run, I should say the one that failed, I mean. I actually attacked while I was on the tire, and I don't know why this counted, but it made Ickis get hit by the spikes above, and I just fell right into the water. And yeah, you can see right there on the left side, the rat actually tries to hit you out of the tire platform, which is kind of rude. And I decided to perform 2 boss skips. So the first one is right where the prize is, which is the mug. So you perform Krumm's eerie eye injected right there, and then wait a few seconds while the eye is out, then hold forward. And to skip the second boss, because the stage has 2 bosses to fight, you want to go on that green part of the steel platform, perform Krumm's triple monster move again, just wait a few seconds while it's out, and then you want to hold forward, and you should skip the other bosses. And not to worry, I am going to, again, the SNES port, you will see me fight both of those bosses, so if you want to know what they look like and how the fights are like, then you can technically also apply them to the Sega Genesis port, in a sense. I want to say that they're not one for one copy, but it's pretty much the same. So in the SNES port, I did have to activate a bunch of levers in that section, but it wasn't that hard since there were no enemies. And coming up should be the boss, which is this guy right here. Now here's the interesting part. When you fight this boss in the Sega Genesis port, it actually is the more aggressive version that can jump. But for this version, it's the exact same as when you fought him in stage 1. So really easy to deal with, just like keep jumping over and attack accordingly. Now, this is actually the Snorch. And he's I don't know. Maybe it's because of how jumping feels in this game, or maybe because I suck. Like, if you want to call it a skill issue, that's fine. But I had a hard time jumping over him in this fight for some reason. But as long as you are able to jump over him, all you have to do is just hit the tire above, and it should take like 5 to 6 hits to defeat him, and then you'll be on to the next stage.
Ready?
So I think there's only one dump stage, and you go straight into the post office, which is the stage right here. And this is the same for both versions. Again, I still can't get over how the humans in like the Genesis port only take 3 hits on Nightmare, and they take 7 hits in the Super Nintendo port. Like, it eats up so much time, dude. Like, oh man. So yeah, both this is going to be the part of the long play where I really can't say a whole lot in terms of like just like, I mean, it is still a guide first and foremost, so talking about how to get, I should be talking about how to get through these stages instead of constantly comparing both games at this point. But yeah, there isn't a whole lot I can say. It's more of just like, if you watch it, you will know what to do. But still, I do want to talk about this game a bit more. And again, there are still some differences coming up in between both versions. Now, the Genesis port, you see that claw machine with the paper? They do not damage you in the Sega Genesis port, and in fact, they will actually swing you forward, which you will see happen later. And in the Super Nintendo port, they actually damage you, and they take a lot of hits. You actually have to destroy them with your garbage, and they take a ton of hits. I think it's like, it might actually be more than 7 now that I think about it. It is ridiculous. But you have to destroy them because they're almost unavoidable to like get past, unless you want to take a hit. Now the SNES port, because of the floaty jumps, this part is way harder in my opinion. Not by that much, but like you can see I'm right here, and I just want to fall. Well, I got really lucky there, but you want to go on that platform. And then for this last one, due to how jumping feels, you want to jump like right when they're about to, right before they right at that timing. I don't know how to explain it, but once they're about to pop, you want to jump right when they're about to pop up. Like, how do I even word this? You want to jump right when you feel like they're about to pop up when you land, and then you should have enough time to make it up there. Like, I don't know how else to word it. I apologize. But you can see on the left that the Genesis port is giving me a hard freaking time because I'm constantly getting pushed back by getting hit, which is not very fun. I don't know how you're supposed to avoid that box. I don't think it's possible. Which is, I'm pretty sure it's not like that in the SNES version, and the box is supposed to go to the right. But because it goes to the left, there's not really much you can do about it. So that's another annoying thing I will say about the Sega Genesis port. When it comes to the post office stages in particular, it feels like there are a few sections that have like unavoidable damage. Like you just bound it, you just have to take a hit. Like that's the best way I can explain it. Oh, and that's the thing too. I can't even oh, there's one part I'm waiting for. Now you might be realizing that in the Genesis port there's a ton of jar of fleas that you can get from those bags by hitting them. In the SNES port, all you get is apples, and that's assuming even all of them even like have an item inside it. But as I recall, not one of them have a jar of fleas inside. You only get like a piece of apple, which gives you 1 hit point. So the Genesis port is way more kinder, like without a question, at least for this stage. Now the part on the left is pretty simple. You just want to press the switch to make the box fall on the button. And yeah, there are going to be some humans, but all you gotta do is hold like down just to make sure. Now I wonder, I'm paying close attention to the Genesis port, and oh my goodness, it's actually more fit. Oh, I can't wait to talk about that. Good. Okay. So one thing that's really annoying is the Super Nintendo port. Let me tell ya, there is some like weird like magic going on with how the enemy spawns work, because I'll talk about it when we get there. We're not quite there yet, but I swear there are some sections where the enemies won't, like, you see an enemy coming up and then the game's like, oh, player is at this location, an enemy is going to spawn right behind them right now. Like it's the rudest. I'm pretty sure I made like a small video showing a brief example of it, but it's like the worst thing ever. It is so mean. So you probably see that come up near the end of the stage, which I should be close to. Man, I really love this. I don't know. As biased as I am in terms of like loving the Sega Genesis version over the SNES port, despite many of my reasons being facts that you can see for yourself by playing both games on your own, I still love both games. I don't know. I probably shouldn't even be talking about my opinion yet. It's not like we have the credits, but man, I just love the show a lot. All right, it's really cool. It is really it's one of the few cartoons that I watched like multiple times in a row. I think I can't think of another off the top of my head. Yeah, not the moment at least, but this is definitely like my favorite cartoon without question. And again, it's not perfect, but that is just my preference. I really wish it got like I don't know. Yeah, so yeah, I was so distracted in my own thoughts, but like yeah, that enemy to the right, he only pops up when you get to the set. Like it should happen. It might happen again even. Like you see an enemy to the left, and then one would just magically appear from the right. Right? Yeah, there it is. Like, yo, why? Why? And then he disappeared. Like, bro, what is this? Like, why does it do that? Like, it's just so mean. Anyways, the screen on the left, you actually have to use Oblina TM to get past these, whereas you can just walk through them in the SNES port. But of course, there are. God, the spawns are ridiculous, and yeah, I just took damage there. I probably should have used a scare. Like, man, dude, it's so mean. It is very mean. Especially considering, like, even though, again, I'm not amazing at the SNES port, or I should say not as good compared to the other, like, imagine being a kid and trying to get through this. You really have to have nothing better to do to pull it off, man. And maybe that was the case for me when I was younger. I mean, actually no, because I did have this game when I was younger, but I wasn't really good at video games, so I never really got far in there. I just remember watching like one of my relatives play it, and they got stuck at the museum stage. I can't wait to talk about that one because there's a very interesting that stage has a skip, but the way it's done is different between both versions. So I'll talk about that later. We're not even close to that yet. That's like in the middle of the game. But yeah, I might as well keep like talking, like commentating over this, because I'm pretty sure the intro I'm gonna mention that I should mention that I am recording this before doing the whole script for the intro, but I do know that I am going to upload a commentated. Wow, Oblina actually can't get up there while switching. That is crazy. I'm going to upload a non-commentated version of this anyway, so again, if you find me annoying or want me to shut up, then you can always watch that instead. And even though I rarely do that, I think I only did it like once or twice in the past. I'm doing that because, well, one, I do want to update the guides, add a few things I've have learned in terms of like differences and all that, and also to give like whoever's reading the guide like an option to watch the long plays like back to back, so that they can like see it for themselves. But the other reason is because, again, I love the show so much, and like if I'm going to do a long play on this game, I do want to make it as watchable as possible. I mean, like, because not everyone wants to watch a commentated long play, so I might as well like have the option of, hey, like, then instead watch this one where you don't have to hear me talk for, hopefully, I don't know, like 2 hours. This video is so freaking long, dude. Holy crap. But yeah, so far it's so good. There's not a lot for me to comment on the stage since it's mostly the same. This is what I was talking about, in that, like, again, except for this part where I can just hold forward in the Genesis port because the claws aren't that dangerous. But I do know there is one dangerous part coming up in the Genesis port, and it is not this bad in the Super Nintendo port. And it will really come down to like what makes the part coming up dangerous is it's a combination of the short invisibility. You see, like right there, I got hit twice really quickly. It's a combination of both the short invisibility and the knockback upon getting hit. So I guess I'm about to talk about it since we are about to yeah, this part. So you see these boxes jumping up, right? You need to, I got lucky there. When you get to that part, you want to make sure that the first box, the one closest to you, is going up first. If that one's going up second, then you have to just go away, come back, and hope that it changes. Because if you try to jump over those boxes while the first one is going up second, like the one closest to you, there's a good chance you're gonna get hit. Then you're gonna fall down in that pit. And then you're just gonna constantly keep getting hit by the box over and over. Then you're gonna panic and try to jump out, but then the short invisibility makes you get hit again, and you bounce back in the pit. And it is just like the epitome of getting like stun locked. You can easily lose all 11 hit points from that hazard alone. It is gross. Anyways, this is kind of the boring part of this stage, that you have to hit these. And wow, they actually take 5 hits to the feet. What were they thinking? Are you serious? That sounded like AVGN. Oh my goodness. What were they thinking? I'll stop. I'm sorry. But like, yeah, like they just have so much health. I don't know why. Like, because this game is already long enough. They did not need to do this for Nightmare mode. I mean, I guess they gotta accurate, right? Nightmare mode. This really is a nightmare, aka the nightmare of wasting my time. It doesn't make the game awful, but this is crazy, dude. 10 hits, really? Because again, maybe it's possible to jump over them. Like, I should really test that. Hopefully I don't forget, but jeez, dude, just to get through that part safely, you have to hit it 10 times. Which would be a big deal if it was just like one of them, but like the fact that all the enemies are like tanky, just have so much health, is crazy. Now I don't know what I was trying to do here. I think I was trying to get back on that and then try to go all the way up there to get like just one more hit point, because I'm pretty sure that bag has a piece of apple. But I just said screw it and I just went back to the right. And coming up, you should still have seen that part I mentioned earlier. I used to thought that claw that comes up could one-shots you, but no, only deals a point of damage, thank goodness. And I forgot to mention that those steel presses usually go down 3 times in a row and then stop for a brief moment, and that is your chance to go through. Now, the funny part about this part is that when you go to the right, it's actually, oh, I thought it was 4, but I guess it's 1, just like the Genesis port. Something I messed up. But yeah, this part is just way easier because you can see there's no boxes to jump over. Whoa. So a little bit of mercy on the SNES port, I must say. Even though the enemy spawns are really out of hand. And you can actually see that I'm missing some of my attacks because the enemy's attack is overriding it. Like it's destroying my projectiles.
Ready?
And here's the interesting part. So you can see the SNES port that we now have to scare the boss. But the Genesis port does not have that screen. And it's here that we actually get into what I think is the only Sega Genesis exclusive stage. So not only is it an exclusive stage, but again, like that, when you saw that, like the grumble pointing at the boss, that screen is in the Sega Genesis port. It's there. And the reason why I know it's there is because if you do a cheat code to go to the level select, you can actually view that screen. But for it's stuff like that that makes me think that this port was actually rushed, like it just wasn't finished, because they have the screen to show that you gotta scare the boss, so why not use it? But with that said, the boss is actually coming up. Like after you get through the stage, you immediately go to the boss battle. And in this long play, I just stick to the Genesis port. You see the boss, how the boss is handled in this, and then I'll show how the boss is handled in the SNES port. So it's not going to be like both side by side. It's just going to be back to back, just to make it easier for me to explain what to do, because the way you deal with this boss in both ports is slightly different, but the idea is the same. So coming up should be the boss, and here's how you deal with her. So the first thing you want to do is hit the lever. Now in this port, she only attacks you if you're close enough. And when she goes all the way to the left, you want to use the scare to send her back to the middle. So she's in the middle, hit her once, then use the switch to make the boxes go to the right, scare again. And again, you want to use the switches so that the box lands in the middle. And then when she goes to the right, you want to make sure the box lands to the right. Use the scare to send it back to the middle. It's a really simple pattern, because the switch that's next to you only controls the top conveyor belt, which is all you need to hit her in the middle and the right. But if you want to hit her to the left, you have to go to the switch that's all the way to the right. And obviously that means you're going back and forth. You have to dodge her attacks and you might get hit on the way down. But if you have 5 scares to spare, you can simply hit her once in the middle, then hit her once on the right. And then when she goes all the way to the left, you can just use a scare to send her back to the middle. Really simple. And that's exactly what I did for the Super Nintendo port, but it's a bit different this time around. Now the idea is the same. You use the top conveyor belt to hit her in the middle and to hit her in the right. But she doesn't go all the way to the left upon getting hit from the right side. She actually goes to the middle. So in total, you can get up to 3 hits per... You can get up to 3 hits before she's all the way to the left again. Now another difference is that she can hit you at full screen. Like she doesn't have to be near you to actually aim her boxes at you. So while the SNES port does require less monster manuals, you still have to dodge her attacks no matter where she is. Now again, Genesis port is the same, so I just failed it on purpose because it's not a big deal. I don't really need any continues for either port. And the SNES port is kind of difficult because you have to collect tomatoes and while dodging those. So of course I failed there.
Ready?
So now we're at chapter 3. And it's at this point the game gets a little mean. This stage isn't too bad. For some reason it starts with a cat on the SNES port. And the weirdest thing, man, I remember when I first played this on the Super Nintendo port, I was getting so angry. So you see in the Genesis port that there are these cages that fall down when you jump on them, and the last cage you're gonna do is just make the jump easy. I made that just really easy jump. I rarely struggle with it. And you can see that I just go straight to the top path, which I'm going to do that exact same thing for the Super Nintendo port. Unfortunately, I missed the jump in the Genesis port, so I missed out on some goodies, but it's not a big deal. But you can see that in the SNES port, the jump is way harder. Like you have to like, even though I made it on the first try, you have to like walk off the platform to make it. It is a mess. Now the Genesis port, you have to face Zimbo, a really easy boss. You can just make him keep flying in the same direction, the same spot by going under him as he goes down. Then you have to hit the lever, go over this platform, which is again is really hard to do without taking damage. And see, if this was the SNES port, I could use Krumm's invincibility to just like get through that no problem. And I'm pretty sure Krumm's jump is actually like good enough, like just low enough to get through those spikes much easier than Ickis and Oblina, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, SNES port pretty much the same, not that hard. I actually took a lot of damage here because I was trying to defeat the cat. Because I was scared I was just gonna follow me to the boss battle. Yeah, it just took a lot of damage. Yeah, I even got hit by like that stray projectile from the rat. So because this is high up, I decided to use Oblina's triple monster move to get there safely. And coming up should be the boss fight, which is surprisingly easier than the Sega Genesis version. So, you didn't get to see it because I defeated him really quickly, but when you face the Zimbo in the Sega Genesis port, he will actually drop you on spikes, which of course will damage you. But in the Super Nintendo port, he just sends you back, which isn't really a big deal since it doesn't hurt you when he grabs you, so you can still deal damage to him when he does this. Like, you can just hold up to aim your garbage up and get a free hit. And something I didn't mention, the health bars for the bosses is actually on the top right in the SNES version, whereas in the Genesis version, there's just a long health bar in the middle, in the bottom middle of the screen, I should say. Yeah, coming up should be the museum stage. I can't wait to talk about this because this stage, man.
Ready?
It's very, very easy to get stuck in this stage if you don't know what you're doing. So I definitely gotta talk about this one. Now, in the beginning, I don't know if this is also a case in the Genesis version, because that's one thing I really did enjoy about playing the SNES version is that I was learning, even in the failed runs, I was still learning a lot, like just stuff I didn't even realize. And it just makes me wonder, like, man, did I actually miss these in the Genesis version, or were they just never there? Like, I'm not unsure. So this stage is a bit more manageable in the Genesis version, except for one point, which we'll get into later. But there is one major difference. Now, you see these small pterodactyls, and they pretty much lay bombs, right? Like these egg bombs. I think they're annoying in both versions, but for completely different reasons. In the SNES version, they fly really, really fast. The way their bombs like fly across the screen is kind of hard to deal with, but they still go down in one hit. Now the Genesis version, they're annoying because they go down in one hit, but as they're falling down, they can actually hit you, like, because you see them explode when they fall down. But the SNES version, you don't take damage from the explosion, but the Genesis version you do. So keep that in mind when dealing with these guys in the Genesis version, since even when you defeat them, they can get a cheap hit on you. Wow, geez, I am falling down so much in the Genesis version. What is going on? Good riddance. I could be mistaken, but I think for once I actually took longer in the stage than the Genesis version. Wow. I am shocked. Because again, I do feel that this is like my this is the version I'm better at, so man, I was struggling a lot here. But not that it's a big deal though, because the Genesis version, again, you have 11 hit. Again, what is going on? Bro! Man, what a mess. How did I even get through this without losing a life? Oh my goodness. Well, thank goodness I'm not speedrunning this game. Oh, that would be a mess. But, not that I wouldn't, maybe I should speedrun this game someday, but I'm not a big fan of it because due to how health works and how the monster manuals work, like the fact that you don't recover them between stages, speedrunning this game optimally, you'd have to you have to both damage boost and by damage boost I mean just take intentional hits and keep going, and you'd have to die on purpose in multiple areas just to get your monster manuals back, and I'm not really a fan of that. So I doubt if I do ever speedrun this game, I don't know, I doubt it, but if I do, then there's not a high chance that I'd get first place or whatever. That's just me though. Now, that was a mistake I made in the Genesis version. I should have held down to see where the spikes were. In fact, the same thing goes for the Super Nintendo port. Like, when you get to the part with the spiky bones, you always want to hold down, just in case. But other than that, as long as you keep that aware and platform carefully, you should be good. Now, yeah, I'm actually further in the SNES port, I think, and to the left in this area, I mean, I should say like in the SNES port in the right screen, you can get a free monster manual there by pushing the box right on that button. And if you get stuck behind the door, don't worry, because there's a button right there so that you can get out. And I don't know what I was doing in the Genesis port. I think I was trying to use Krumm's triple monster. Wow, actually, okay, I didn't know I got through the door that way, but with Krumm's triple monster move, it's also possible to go through doors, like even the ones that like require you to hit a switch. But yeah, somehow I just had Ickis to face through it by using Krumm's triple monster move, so I just switched to Ickis, and there we go. And yeah, I think for once I'm gonna have to focus on talking about the Super Nintendo port, because I think I cleared this faster than I do the other one. Or maybe I'm at the same spot? Yeah, it looks like I'm at the exact same spot for both. That is crazy. Wow. That's some good timing. Mind you, like, both stages start at the same time, so it's quite impeccable. Now, I think the Genesis... Actually, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to pay attention to the Genesis port because... Okay, there's a bonus right there. Because I know the Super Nintendo port, you can see me push this box, and... Once I see the box reach the light in the background, that's when I hold right to jump to fall off. That's my timing for it. Now, I do want you to pay close attention to the Genesis port. You're going to see me fall down here, which should happen soon. And once you fall on this bone, you want to immediately jump to the left. This will allow you to skip a chunk of the stage. Now, for the Super Nintendo port, all you have to do is jump to the left? Yeah, so that you can get to that box. And once you see the dinosaur, that's when you want to immediately hold right. Like, even if I take damage, that's fine. And by doing this, you skip a chunk of the level. And you can just go straight to the exit. Now, the reason why you have to go, you have to keep going left in the Genesis port is because... Unlike the Super Nintendo port where the assigned prize is near the exit to the right, the assigned prize in the Sega Genesis port is to the left, as you can see here. So even though it is still a skip, it's not nearly as fast as a skip compared to the Super Nintendo port, because again, the Super Nintendo port, you go on the bone, you jump to the left to get on the box that leads to the exit and the assigned prize. But for the Genesis port, you have to make quite the long journey, and then you want to go back to the box in order to make this last jump. Now this jump is very, very mean. You just have to do it. There's no shortcut around it. I don't have any advice for you. I'd say it's the same as the previous dump stage, where like you want to jump right when you're about to fall off, and you should make it. But unfortunately, this enemy right here, he can actually interrupt you mid jump, and if he hits you while you're mid air, then most likely you're going all the way back down.
Ready?
Now this is an interesting difference. So you saw on the Sega Genesis port that it showed the item and the security guard as the boss, aka the target. Now these stages are similar. Again, they're not one for one because of the tar pit, which I'm sure I'm going to mention in the intro. Okay, I don't mind. Oh my goodness, this freaking stage, dude. So if any part of your pixel in the Super Nintendo version just touches that black tar, the deep one, not the very thin one that you can walk across, but if just a pixel touches it, it doesn't matter like where or how, you instantly sink in, and like that is it. You are done. There's just no recovering from it, which is so screwed up. But again, in the Genesis version, you can just jump across it. I'm surprised I didn't do that for this part right here, but oh yeah, I actually did. Okay, so you can see me mashing jump in the Genesis version. You do still have to avoid the droplets to avoid taking damage, but as long as you keep mashing jump, you can get through that part much easier. And who knows, maybe the Genesis version was supposed to have the tar like defeat you instantly, but the only way the tar can actually take a life away is if you stay inside it. And like if you stay inside it and if you sink all the way in, that's when it'll take a life away. Like I assume in this point, the Genesis version, you're supposed to use like Ickis's triple monster move twice to get past it. But again, you can just jump across it. Wow, I took a lot of damage here, but it's not too bad. I'm pretty sure I get through this no problem. But yeah, yeah, you can see right here, like the SNES port actually do have to use Ickis' triple monster move, because again, if you touch the tar pit, it is instant death. Wow, I've never even though obviously I did these runs, I didn't do these runs back to back, but this is my first time like thoroughly like watching both runs back to back while commentating over them at the same time. So it's kind of weird. Now again, because of how the Genesis version is, and yeah, that's the thin tar pit I was talking about. You can just walk across it for both versions, which isn't too bad. And yeah, same thing for the SNES version. In fact, at one point, I think the tar pit like scared me in the SNES version. I thought even the thin one just caused an instant death, but like that was just me panicking. I don't know why. Yeah, other than that, the stage is like, it's straightforward. It's not confusing. It's just really easy to, especially in the SNES version, it's just really easy to take a lot of damage and or lose a life. Like you see that piece of apple right there, you might think it's worth getting, but you can actually slide down those dinosaur bones, and if you slide down and touch that little piece of tar, that is it. It is a wrap. So I don't even mess with that. I just say screw it. Maybe just get the cans up here. Cans do also restore health. I probably should have mentioned that in the beginning. There's a lot of items that restore health really, but yeah, it's pretty much apples, cans. In the Genesis version, the records count too. The bugs, and of course the jar of fleas. Yeah, so far so good. Both versions are going really well. I'm pretty sure in the Genesis version I'm going to get through that stage first before the SNES version is over. And assuming I didn't mention this already, but like yeah, so in the Genesis version you face a security guard in this stage in particular, whereas the Super Nintendo version is actually its own separate stage. So after you beat the stage, then you enter a stage that's specifically for the security guard, and the fight is actually much different. So I can't wait to talk about that when it comes. But other than that, these stages are similar. The main difference really is just how the tar works. Like, obviously they're more scary in the SNES version, but not so much in the Genesis version. Now, another thing I should mention on the right screen is that when you fight the pterodactyls over the thin tar pits, that's for some, I don't know why, maybe I'm wrong, but that's the only time they can actually damage you. Like when they land on the tar pits, that's the only time they can actually damage you while being defeated. So here's the boss for the Genesis version. You want to stay right here, like between these two dropping droplets of tar. And as long as you keep attacking and you occasionally jump over the banana, you can actually defeat the guard before he closes the distance. Like obviously if you have some garbage ammo, you can defeat him much quicker, or if you want to use scares. But the thing is, scares don't really deal a lot to him, so I decided to hold on to it instead. Now, the Super Nintendo part, this part is freaking scary. You have to do some very careful jumps. If you miss one, it is a wrap as usual. But if you can get past it, it is doable. I actually had a run where I lost like 6 freaking lives from trying to do that jump. But it is doable, and there was... I mean, I didn't test this on like emulator or whatever, but when I was playing this stage in the Splat Pack, you know how you saw the bones going up and down? If you jump straight up while the bone is high up, and by the way, there's a boss. If you jump up while the bone is like high up, it'll actually go even higher and it won't sink into the pit anymore. I can't explain it with words, but it's so weird. Now this boss is actually easier than the Genesis port in a sense, if you know how to do it fast enough. So you can see I missed there, but what you want to do is you gotta press the button in the middle to turn off the lights, and then once you do, you have to go right in the spotlight and perform a scare. Now don't worry if you run out of scares, because a monster manual will immediately pop up in the middle, so you have all the scares in the world to work with. And coming up should be the next bonus stage for the Super Nintendo port. Again, for the Genesis port, it is the same thing, just a different layout. Pretty sure I get it right this time, if I'm not mistaken. There we go. And the Super Nintendo port, this bonus stage is weird, dude. It's so weird. So you're holding on to this pterodactyl, and the controls are, I can't. You need to play it. I'm not even going to talk about it. You need to play that mini game yourself to feel the controls. I cannot explain it with words how it feels. It's. Let me relax. I'm sorry. But anyway, this is the start of chapter 4. And the controls to that mini game on the Super Nintendo version is screwed. You have to like tap left or right instead of holding it, because if you hold one direction for too long, you then have to hold the other direction for a long time to even get going to that direction. It's so weird, dude. It's so weird. It's probably the worst like controlling. It's probably the worst part of like that game in terms of controls. Now the Genesis version, this stage is way more scary because there's a lot of water in the stage, which can instantly cost you a life if you're not careful. And there's a lever to the top left. I don't remember what it controls in the Genesis port, but maybe it makes rewards pop up, if I'm not mistaken. Man, what if I mentioned that in the guide? I really gotta like recheck that stuff, man. Cause it feels like I've mastered these games, but like I don't know. Like it feels like they also have more secrets to find out. Maybe that's just me though. It could just be obvious stuff, really, and I'm just remembering. Now, I'm pretty sure in the Genesis port that I get up to one point and then I had to pause it because it was just because that's when the stages become similar. Oh, okay. Alright. Now I remember. Okay, it's this freaking stage. Alright, so this stage is screwed up in both ports. It's very, very rude. I was thinking of a different stage, but I think that is until later, maybe into chapter 5. But this stage is mean, and I guess I'm also talking about the. You should probably pay attention to the Genesis version first, because the hardest part of this stage will come up in the SNES version by the time the Genesis version is done. So you see these shrinking platforms going just in and out. Now it's possible to stay right in the middle, as you can see here, and then you can make the next jump. Nice, simple enough. However, this next jump is really screwed up. So that jump's fine, but then you have to get on this jump. So I decided to do a glitch instead. You switch to Oblina, and when it expands, you want to move to the right and then immediately perform the triple monster move. She falls in the water and you hold right and you make that jump easily. If you try to do that jump normally, it is it's like very tight. Like there's no room for error. It has to be perfect. It is, oh my god, it is very mean. So yeah, the reason why that glitch works is because I think that you're considered invincible while performing a triple monster move in the Genesis port. So even though Oblina's in the water, which would obviously result in instant death, because you're considered invincible during a team move, it actually doesn't count, and she automatically teleports to the other monsters because part of her animation is to go on top of them to jump. So that part should also be coming up in the SNES port, and it's way more rude there, which you'll see in a bit. And the rest of the stage actually isn't that bad. Like it is very manageable. And of course the Genesis port is way easier. But if you talk about the SNES port, oh friggin' boy. So it's the same deal, just a lot of strict platform jumping, and you see me attack mid-air a lot. The reason is because I know that some of the crows just magically appear while you're jumping forward. So you can see me attacking preemptively. I see I got one right there, and I'm pretty sure there's one more crow coming up. And yeah, you just want to jump, make these jumps, and make sure you attack. Well, I got really lucky there. I should have fell in there, but somehow I didn't. And yeah, this is a really rude section if this is your first time, because the platforming is bad enough, especially with the way the SNES version controls. And oh yeah, that's right. So the Genesis version, you hear a buzzing sound when you get to this part. If you perform a scare, that will instantly skip the boss that was supposed to appear in this part. So Genesis port, once you hit a buzzing, just perform a scare and move on. But you do have to make sure to get the assigned prize first, which is it's actually to the left of the exit, and then you want to, like, once you get the prize, you go to the exit, you hear the buzzing, perform a scare, and you instantly skip that boss. So yeah, as I was saying, Yeah, that platforming section is just really rough since like the controls make it hard enough, especially like the straight platforming, but the fact that you also have to like hit the crows on the way there and they can just hit you, like just interrupt your momentum is just, oh man, it is. Again, if you know how to deal with it, it's not that bad, but if it's your first time, you can lose so many lives trying to get through that. So even if you're just starting, my advice is just to like attack while jumping forward. If you can do that, it's fine. Now, here's the main difference. In the Genesis port, there was actually fans here that just sprung us up. There was no enemies here, but in this port, there are platforms going left and right, and there are crows to deal with. And I'm pretty sure there's one more crow or two more when you jump to the right, so as long as you attack while jumping to the right, you should be able to deal with them without taking damage. And there is the assigned prize. So in this part, you gotta use Oblina's team move to get to the top. And then you have to use Ickis' team move to get to the left. So you see me do that right here. And unlike the Genesis port, there is no way to skip the Zimbo boss fight, so you're going to actually have to fight him. Which still isn't a bad... the boss fight is still pretty easy, it's not that bad. So, should be coming up right here. And it's kind of the same deal as when you first fought him, where like you want him to lower himself, you can get a free hit on him as he's coming towards you, and then once you see him going down, that's when you want to dodge him accordingly. So like you can see right there, he kind of almost faked me out, but you know, I just reacted and decided to go on the other side. Pretty easy. And he should go down in like 2 more hits. I could use a scare if I want, but the thing is, as I was playing this game, I was still in that like no miss run mindset. But eventually, especially in this chapter, this is when I start losing lives. Oh boy, this run is gonna get really weird from here. So the Genesis port, you see that I'm in the, I think this is called the Googleplex if I'm not mistaken, and the SNES port, I think it fades in if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it already did? I'm pretty sure. Oh no, it's the other stage. I actually got through the stage, no problem. But so oh yeah, this is the mall thing, by the way. It's one of my favorites. But the weird thing about this is I didn't change the order of the stages at all. Like this is just like the long plays back to back. The Genesis version has the Googleplex after the dump. Assuming I'm not wrong that this is called the Googleplex and that the stage on the right is actually the mall. And the Super Nintendo version goes to the mall. Now here's a weird part. In the Genesis port, after you beat this stage, you go to the mall, which is the stage you're seeing on the right. But when you beat the stage on the right, like when you're in the Super Nintendo version and you beat the mall stage, you go to the Googleplex. So the stages are swapped. So that means after both these stages are over, on the Genesis port, you're going to see the mall stage again, and then on the Super Nintendo port, you're going to see the Googleplex stage again. It is so freaking weird, dude. It is so weird. I don't know why they made that decision, but I mean, yeah, sure. Now, something interesting is that you see this flower shooting projectiles on the right. They actually cannot be destroyed in the Genesis version. They're actually invincible. They're just completely invincible. You cannot destroy them at all. And like, oh wow, I'm actually getting tired. It is really pretty late right now, but like I don't know a better time to record this, and it has been like over an hour of me commentating over this, but it's whatever. So if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the planes in the Super Nintendo port cannot be destroyed. I could be wrong though, I don't know. But from what I remember, you can't destroy the planes in the SNES port, but you can actually destroy them in the Genesis port, which is pretty cool. And yeah, I don't know exactly how I'm going to commentate over this because it's like 2 different things going on right now. So, oh boy, how am I going to commentate over this? I guess I'll mention. I guess I could talk about the mall stage. I probably should have like edited the run in a way that like, I don't know. I guess the Genesis version to show the mall stage first and then the Googleplex, but. Again, I do want to show like the normal experience, like this is how the ports actually are, the stages are swapped. So I didn't want to like adjust the order of the stages just for the sake of consistency. because this is just what it was like. Like, I remember I played the SNES version. I'm like, wait a minute, this stage is first? And it's like, yeah, it is. So you see the palm trees, you have to keep jumping on them because you actually slowly sink down as you're like standing on them. And for the cactus, you can thankfully Ickis is short enough that he can go under them, which is really good. I can't imagine trying to jump over them and trying to jump over the race cars that you cannot destroy, by the way. Dealing with both of those at the same time would be a mess, but thankfully that is not the case. Now, across the mall stages, you will also realize that there are buttons that you have to hit. And the way it works is pretty simple. Some of the fountains will, they won't spring you as high up. And what you're supposed to do is find a red button, you click it, and it will make that, it will activate the fountain pretty much. So I don't know if it will come up again in the SNES port. I have to wait and see. I know for the Genesis port, I did get through the Googleplex stage pretty easily. Wasn't that bad. So now we can focus on the SNES port. And there should be, yeah, there's a diaper up there. There's also a diaper in this exact location for the Genesis port. So again, these stages are very similar. And you can just see me using the invisibility to just breeze past this point, and I'm just going to go straight to the pipes. And for these planes, you can actually jump over them. And that monster manual right there, if it was the Genesis port, you can actually, I'm pretty sure that happens too. I don't know why I'm like talking ahead, but like, if it was the Genesis port, you can actually just get them by having one of the other two monsters fall right there. But again, they cannot grab items in this version, so you'd have to fall down and then make your way all the way back up, which I don't think is really worth it for one monster manual, especially in the game where like you get 5 back for losing a life. So you hit that button right there and it does activate the fountain to the right, but I decided to keep going left to see if there was any more items to collect, preferably health. Because if I'm not, yeah, there's so much to explain. Maybe I should have had both stages back to back, but I'm pretty sure in the Genesis version there's actually a jar of fleas in this section specifically. Alas, there is not. So I mean, if there is, then chances are I missed it. So like, at least for the Super Nintendo port. But I do know there's definitely again, if I'm not mistaken, definitely one for the Genesis port. Anyways, you should be getting close to the end of the stage. You can hear the buzzing right now. And yeah, like again, because it was disappointing to run for the Super Nintendo port where I was really trying to get a no miss run. I do eventually lose a few lives, but that doesn't happen to the stage after this. Now, for the Sega Genesis port, it is back to the mall. I said back to the mall. This is where the mall stage begins, and for the Super Nintendo port, this is where the Googleplex stage begins. So, pretty much the same thing. There's not much to mention. The Genesis port, yeah, you can actually make that kid flinch. That's not possible in the SNES port. Why? But it's the same deal. You just activate buttons to make the fountain go up, like some of the fountains at least. And I think in 1 or 2 sections you can actually use Oblina's triple monster move to just skip one of the fountains and just go on the trees without needing the fountain's help. So you might see that later if you're paying attention to the left side of the screen. And the weird part about this is that you realize that this mall stage has a boss. Like, it shows a target, which was like a woman in a karate gi. And it's not in the Super Nintendo port. Why is it not in the Super Nintendo port? Because well, I'll save that surprise for later, because there's actually a Super Nintendo exclusive stage coming up that where you find a target. But unlike the Genesis port, the Super Nintendo version is a bit more complete, so it's going to look a bit more different when we get there. So hopefully you're on the lookout for that. But for now, this is a mall stage for the Genesis port, Googleplex stage for the Super Nintendo port, and you can see me on the left trying to use Oblina's triple monster move to just shortcut to the right. If you don't do that, then you'd have to go to the left and activate a button to make the make the water fountain. I don't know why I was having a hard time thinking about that. Make the water fountain spring you all the way up to where the palm tree is. But it's nothing you have to do. Again, you can see the flower on the left. In this part, they're invincible, so you just have to deal with it and just jump over that. Because I'm pretty sure Ickis can't get under it without taking damage, so you do have to actually jump. Thank goodness jumping feels really good at this point. You can actually destroy the cars in this version. That's crazy. I didn't even realize that till now. What the? Oh my goodness. This had to be made. There's no way this wasn't made after the Super Nintendo port. Or maybe like I don't know. But either it was like 2 different teams, or maybe they did the Genesis port first and thought the game wasn't unfair enough. I don't know. No, but then there's like so many things that make me feel that this was made after. This game, the differences in these games are like, feel like a mystery, man. Like, what? Maybe that is actually, maybe I'm over exaggerating. Like, maybe there's actually a release date for both versions. Maybe they were released on different dates, perhaps. But like, it's just crazy, man. Like, the Genesis port really got like the end of the stick in terms of like not being complete, and yet somehow it feels better to control. But yeah, coming up on the left should be the boss battle. I'm probably going to pause my commentary on the right when the boss battle's over, because for the SNES version I played it really safe, and I was using Krumm's triple monster move a lot in order to whatchamacallit, in order to get through the stage like in a smooth process, because again I was still trying to, at this point in this stage, I was still trying to do a no miss run, so I really didn't want to lose a life. But once I do lose a life, that's when I get really reckless. So anyways, here's the boss on the left. So she'll perform a jump kick to your location, and then she will spin and do a spin jump in place. As long as you make slight movements every time she attacks, you should have enough room and that you shouldn't take too much damage. And another cool thing is that you can actually use scares to, if you scare her, it will not only deal damage, but actually like stun her for a very brief moment. So it's possible to use scares to like keep her in place and to get a few more garbage attacks in, use another scare, and so on and so on. But yeah, this is pretty much the same as when I played this in the Genesis port, so for now, I'll be right back for when we get up to the Super Nintendo exclusive mall stage. Okay, and now we get to the second mall stage of the Super Nintendo port. And you can realize here that like the scare target looks different for some reason. It's not like an actual, it's not like a woman in karate gi. And of course, I'm not ashamed to admit that I did lose 2 lives at the beginning. Because this was like, I don't know, this is the part of the game that feels really difficult, and once I started losing lives, I started to get more and more reckless, like I was getting frustrated, but I still did manage to get through this game without using a continue. Again, as long as you got plenty of lives to spare, it's not that bad, but it is still really difficult. And who knows, maybe it's like, again, I should probably talk about that later. Like you can see here, I'm just rushing. I really shouldn't be doing that. I should be taking my time. What we're supposed to be doing is you want to take your time with the escalators. Like you just want to go down them slowly, and then you want to jump over the you want to jump over the planes, like just one at a time. So yeah, this looks rough. Holy crap. So yeah, I just got hit. And wow, how did I get through this part? Did I like get a checkpoint? I assume I get a checkpoint and I like lose a life on purpose. We have to wait and see. Anyway, so there's a bunch of coconut palm trees. Now, they actually do have a pattern of, the way they work is one falls to the right, then the middle, and then the left, and then the middle, and then the right, and then the middle, and then the left. So it goes back to back. As long as you remember that pattern for each tree, that you should be fine in avoiding their explosions. So that part isn't too bad. And this should be another part with more planes, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know why I was thinking of doing why was I thinking of doing Ickis' triple monster move? Yeah, and I was trying to see if there was like actually another plane there. So I'm pretty sure this is where I do his TMM. I don't know why I did that. Yeah, I still get hit. Yeah, here we go. So I actually did lose a life there. So I want to get my HP back. And yeah, there's a scare target. You see that she got one-shotted, which is looking kind of suspicious. I will say though, that animation was pretty freaking neat. Like actually, because she's not in the Sega Genesis version at all, and it's pretty cool that like you can actually defeat her with garbage, but if if you actually do use a scare, you get that unique animation instead, which is I give the Super Nintendo version that it is pretty cool that you can do that. Like that's the kind of animation I want to see when I use like just a big scare against like a human target, you know? It is called Aero Monsters, right? Anyways, the stage isn't over yet. It is still kind of weird that the scare target just takes one hit. Like, you expect it to be a boss battle, but whatever, that's fine. And yeah, you just keep going. You can actually jump on those blue stacks, which I think you're supposed to do in order to get on the pipes above to avoid taking damage. Like, you can see right there, I took 2 hits, but I think it was really unavoidable if I just went on the pipes instead. So again, this is just another case of me rushing out of frustration. Anyways, get a checkpoint there, and you just gotta go across these steam pipes. I think jumping might be faster. It's hard to tell. And I wouldn't be shocked if this is one of those enemies that walk forward, unless they aren't. Okay. If they walk forward, then that's probably the best time to just jump back on the pipes and wait. But thankfully, she didn't. Yeah, so far so good. Wow, I actually avoided that. And coming up is a pretty annoying this section. So you want to push this box and immediately use a scare. Because if you do not scare that kid, planes will constantly keep like coming from the left side. And it's kind of difficult to like get up there and hit the button while the kid's blocking the way. Because remember, the enemies on Nightmare mode are really tanky. Are you really going to like dodge planes for like 30 seconds trying to hit the kid? Anyways, turns out she's actually the woman we scared earlier is actually the one at the karate gi. And this is actually the boss fight. And it's surprisingly way easier. So as long as you stand right in the middle of the table, like crouch under it, like right under the table, and you just keep attacking in place, she cannot hit you. So the second you get into this fight, just go under the middle of the table, just stay crouched, never jump, and just keep crouch attacking, and sooner or later she will be defeated. Really easy stage, all things considered. And yeah, that is it for chapter 4 of both games. You see, that's how you know I was struggling with this SNES play. I didn't even get the, as I was recording this long play, I didn't even get the achievements for that stage yet. That was like my gatekeeper, pretty much. I just did not know how to finish it. Now, this mini game is nonsense. It is complete nonsense. So you gotta get all these tomatoes, but as you can see, when you jump to the right, the items... So I'm pretty sure they want you to get all of the items, like all of the tomatoes. But God, how do I explain this? They want you to get. Oh yeah, and I did lose a life in this stage for the Super Nintendo version. But oh wow, this is actually water. Damn, this Genesis version looks way more mean with the water. And I'm pretty sure there's some crows here too. Yeah, you can see one above. Anyways, with the whatchamacallit? With that bonus game, not all of the tomatoes appear, and I'm pretty sure you have to get all of them to complete it and avoid the Zimbo icons also. But some of them don't even like spawn in, so it's like, wait, what? And then you have to like jump back to make them spawn, and it's I can't explain that one with words. I don't think I've ever completed it. If someone has, I'd love to see it. Maybe someone already has and it's simpler than I think. I don't know if like, because there's no counter in how many tomatoes you need, so I don't know how that's supposed to work. But yeah, when you get to this section in the Genesis version, I always use a scare against that rat, because if you try to make that jump while that rat is there, chances are his projectile is going to hit you while you're mid-air, and then you're going to fall right into the water. So you don't want that to happen. I just use a scare. It's always worth doing so to prevent yourself from losing a life. And yeah, that's why that part is pretty easy. And the reason why I paused it is because this is kind of the part of the stage that's a little bit different compared to the SNES. I forgot I put that in. Anyways, there's a part of the SNES version that was like before this, it was a bit different. Like the SNES version didn't have any water. And surprisingly enough, both versions have a similar secret where you can go into the wall. I don't know why I didn't do it in the Genesis version. I guess I was just feeling confident since I didn't need to. But I'm pretty sure it has a similar secret, if I'm not mistaken. But you see me do it for the SNES version, and then I make my way back to the main path. And so far it's going... Wow, that's so rude. So because I jumped at the end of the slide in the Genesis version, I took damage from the spikes above. I don't know how you're supposed to know that. Actually, I can answer my own question. This game wants you to use Krumm's triple monster move 24/7. In a game that's already over an hour long. That is screwed up, dude. Oh my goodness. But I don't know. Maybe that's just my opinion. Maybe someone's really into just using Krumm's. Like he has to be useful for something, right? Because obviously the boss skipping and the invisibility he gets, like the boss skipping in the Genesis port, and the invisibility he gets in the SNES port from using the triple monster move and bring the eye back. It's obviously unintentional. Like it wasn't supposed to be used that way. So even though Krumm is technically the most useless without those unintentional methods, it's pretty clear to me that he's supposed to be useful for like newbies who don't want to risk a game over. Because if you use Krumm constantly, then technically nothing can scare you. Technically, I've never had a run where I used Krumm's triple monster move over and over. I don't even know if it would even trigger the screwed up spawn points of some of the enemies at the SNES port, but it would definitely make it easier since you know exactly what's coming and you don't really have to remember much. But again, that would just like the playtime would be extended so far, and it's like the game's already so long. Why would you do that, dude? It is, oh man. Anyways, the required item is similar for both ports. I'm not sure why I switched the view, considering this stage is about to end soon anyways, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, that's okay. Yeah, that's why. There's actually a dog boss in this section. Which is interesting because there's a dog boss coming up in the Genesis port, but it's not in this stage. So when you see this boss, he's actually way different. He doesn't stop to catch his breath. He can actually jump too. So my strategy is the SNES port to stay on one side and jump in place, and then throw a garbage attack or two and do the same thing over and over, which isn't too bad. So yeah, this is the next dump stage. I'm pretty sure this is the last dump stage too. Again, pretty similar for both ports, so there's not too much I need to say here. And I don't know if either one's harder or easier. Again, I'm pretty sure like the SNES port is just harder in general. But other than that, actually, you know what? Yeah, there is some differences actually, in a sense. So I might as well go over them when they pop up. But at this point, my mind is like, I don't know, like I don't completely remember this stage outside of this part right here, the springs, where you have to like do some really weird jumps. Like you can see in the Genesis port, you have to like, it's a little rough. But this section is all, wow, that sprite, what the heck? That sprite looked like, I don't know. Like one of the platforms looked a bit weird. It felt like it was unfinished, but maybe that's just me. Anyways, in the Genesis part, I don't really struggle with this all that much because again, the jumping feels really good and there's no enemies around, so you just go across those 3 platforms and you're done. And I'm pretty sure I lost. Did I lose a? I think I missed it, but did I lose a life on the right side? Maybe I did. Other than that, it went pretty smooth for the Genesis port at least. Go through the pipes as usual, and I think coming up with the SNES version should be a 1-up you can get by performing a scare to one of the rats at the top. There it is, beautiful. So if you're dying a lot in this, like here's a good example. So you know when you get that yellow checkpoint in the SNES version and you're dying a lot in that section in particular, you always use a scare right there to get your 1-up back, which is really good. And other than that, the stage should be almost over for the left side at least. I don't think there's all that much left, if I'm not mistaken. It's hard to remember, I don't know. I think it's because the dump stages all look similar. So it's hard to remember every single thing about them. So that's probably why I'm like a bit fuzzy in my memory's a little fuzzy on just how exactly these stages play out. But I know in the Genesis version I do get through it no problem. Well, to some extent, I am taking some damage here. But other than that, it's fine. Oh yeah, I did perform a scare there because it is a rat above that can be annoying to deal with if you don't. So I definitely remember doing that. Yeah, coming up soon should be the end of the stage. And the and the jar flees if you make that jump. Okay, so yeah, the end is coming up because I remember the rats and all that. And yeah, there's not much else for me to say about the stage really. Again, it's still pretty difficult, but at this point in the game, you should be used to it. Like, just the game having a bunch of traps and all that. Pretty sure at the bottom of the screen should be the... Wait, there's a bunch of... Whoa, you saw those spikes? Huh. That probably what threw me off if I played the SNES version first, because in the SNES version, the assigned prize is actually there instead of all those spikes. So you should see that. Oh well, almost shook my table. So you should see that coming up soon. So I get on this platform, and pretty sure there's something to the right. I don't remember what it was. It might be similar to the Genesis port, or maybe it's just a monster manual. Let's wait and see. Yep, there it is. Okay. So yeah, again, the stages are pretty much the same, but there are some differences. So if you remember from what I said earlier, in the Genesis port, when you get to the checkpoint or whatever, there'd be a bunch of spikes below. But in this port, there's only 2 spikes, and the assigned prize is actually behind the pipe right there. And with that, we should be getting close to the end of the game, because after this stage will be 2 stages left. Man, is this the longest long play I've ever commentated over? I'm trying to think of a game that was longer. Maybe, I guess the Ninku games count, but those were 4 separate games, so I don't know. Anyways, believe it or not, the Super Nintendo port, this is the easiest bonus stage out of all of them. Even though the bar, the scale, whatever, moves really slow, you hear the grumble say cool. But yeah, it's just a really easy bonus stage, which is surprising considering how ruthless the earlier ones were. But yeah, I did lose 2 lives in this stage at the start. I think it was because I was trying to experiment with something, but I know the first life I lost because my health was too low, and then the second one, I took a different path, and like I said, screw it, maybe just start from the beginning. So this part is kind of obnoxious. So in the Genesis port, it's still kind of difficult. You can see that there's some platforming you have to do against lockers. If I'm not mistaken, you don't even have to do this port in the Sega Genesis port. Like, you can actually just take the other path and not have to deal with lockers at all. But I think I only did it just to practice, because eventually you are going to have to do some jumping across lockers in order to proceed with the level. So I said screw it, you know, maybe get some practice and get used to it now. Even though that was pretty risky, because they do have steam coming out of them. Now, something to keep in mind is that for some parts of these levels, there are ladders you can climb, so if you see one below, that's probably where you gotta go. And, oh, that's another weird thing. So the cats finally appeared in the Genesis port, and, they only take 1 hit to defeat, but you can only hit them while they're jumping at you. With the only exception being scares, of course. Now, the weird part is that I should be using scares for the cats, because you'll realize that this stage has a lot of robots, and they are completely immune to your scares in this game. So I really, for both versions, whether it be the Super Nintendo or the Genesis, when it comes to the cats or whatever, or anything that can be... I don't think there's any other enemy type in this level that can be scared, so... For the cats in particular, you might as well use your scares, unless you're saving them for the final boss. But the final boss, you can get more scares if you run out, so it comes down to preference, really. I don't think it matters that much. Anyways, this stage has a big habit of having a bunch of buttons to press. There will be a lot of red buttons that you might have seen earlier. So as long as you're aware of that, you you hit the buttons in order to deactivate it. So you can see on the left side, there's a robot right here. And there should be a button to the top left. Yep, all the way up there. So you have to actually aim your garbage up by holding up and pressing attack while jumping. And by doing that, you'll be able to hit the button and activate the lasers. Well, deactivate the lasers, I should say. You see, like, right here, you see on the left that, like, yeah, I should have been used to scaring the cat. I don't know why I was trying to defeat it with garbage. I guess it's because it only takes 1 to hit, so... But yeah, this is, if you hear the SNES version, this is one of the tracks that I do love. It's one of my favorites. Mainly because of, like, I don't know, like, it's not... I just like, I guess I just really love the instruments used. Maybe it's just me. But yeah, as long as you don't forget about the buttons, you should be fine. And the robots are kind of a pain in both versions. I don't think it's as bad in the Genesis version, but like, Okay, how can I put it this way? The small robots in the SNES version are a pain to deal with because if I think they take more hits, like they're a bit more faster too in terms of how they move, so it's easy for them to make contact damage. But in the Genesis version, I think they're easier to deal with. The problem is that the robots on the ground are invincible in the Genesis version, whereas in the SNES version you can actually hit them. Anyways, for the Genesis version, this is the mandatory locker jumping I mentioned. So you have to do some quick jumping. It can be a bit daunting at first, but as long as you get through that, you should be good. It's not really all that much to do. And I'm pretty sure I switched it to the Genesis sound because there's not much of the stage left, and I am going to go back to the SNES version anyways. And coming up should be a boss battle, if I'm not mistaken. Now, there is one single you realize that in the SNES version there are multiple cages to dodge. The Genesis version only has one single cage, so as long as you dodge it, you're fine. If you let that cage touch you on the way down, it is instant. Like, that's it. You just instantly lose a life. So make sure to make it fall and then walk away. Don't rush it. And I really mean that, by the way, because I swear that I don't know about the Genesis version since it's been a while since I don't remember the last time I actually got caught by that cage. I always avoid it anyways. But I think in the SNES version, the cages had like a weird it feels like you get sucked in, like you're not even touching it and you just like gravitate towards it instantly and lose a life. I don't know. Maybe it's because like a pixel of your sprite touched it, just like in the deep tar pits or whatever. So in the Genesis version, I actually didn't make an error. I forgot to get the assigned prize, so that's why the exit didn't appear. Anyways, it was right there where the cage was, and then from there I can just go all the way to the right, and it should be the exit. Beautiful. So, the SNES version, a lot of difficult jumping, similar to one of the other stages. You have to make these jumps, you gotta jump right when you're about to walk off the platform. It is so freaking strict. Mind you, while you're avoiding the lasers too. And by pressing that button, you can deactivate the one that was constantly shooting. And okay, it's not this stage, but the next stage for the Super Nintendo version has a very ruthless section that I still don't understand. Jesus, I can't wait to talk about it, but we're not there yet. I am getting ahead of myself. So I don't know why I was jumping up here. I think I was because it says to go left, but maybe I was trying to activate a button first. Okay, yeah, you're supposed to go right because I already went left because I was too focused on the Genesis Longplay to realize that. Because you pretty much have to activate a button to open that gate, and that will send you to this room right here. And yeah, my health is really low. Maybe I do defeat the robot on bottom. Okay, it doesn't. So in the similar to the Genesis version, you can just take the left path and then go from here, and it shouldn't be too bad. Thankfully, there's no clowns or whatever, so when you see this robot, you should try to deal with it first before moving on. There's really no reason to rush it, because it's not like the game has a time limit or whatever. Oh, that's one thing I should mention too. In the Genesis port, there was a glitch that happened in my original playthrough years ago where Simon the Monster Hunter jump scared me. Like, he just ran across the screen, and I don't even know how to explain that part. But anyways, I should be focusing on the long play in front of me. I did lose a life in this section. I don't remember how. I think it might have been to the robots because I was just struggling trying to defeat them. Yeah, it was definitely the robots because they're just so hard to avoid. So I just said screw it and just keep going. Again, watch out for the cages. They're really dangerous in this game. And maybe I jump over this one. Okay, yeah, I was just trying to get past that one. There should be one more robot in a way, if I'm not mistaken. Alright, that's one, or maybe it's two. Okay, yeah, there we go. So finally, we are at the final stage of the game. It's time to scare Simon the Monster Hunter. And yeah, both games do at least have the same final boss. Again, I lost a life in the SNES version because this game is very difficult. But other than that, I am kind of proud that I was able to get through the SNES version without using a continue. Like, if I had to use a continue at that point, I might as well just start all over. But In the Genesis version, I was trying to get to a secret room by holding right, but I got hit, unfortunately. I do get into that room with the SNES version, which does have a few goodies. I think it's a monster manual and a 1-up, if I'm not mistaken. Which I should mention, by the way, when you see me, like, when you see those cut-ins where, like, I trimmed out the parts where I actually lost lives, and, like, when you look at the lives count, like, wait a minute, but why is the lives counter the same? Chances are is because, I found a 1-up in that attempt where I lost a life, and, like, it made up for the life I lost. So, if you want an explanation, there you go. So, yeah, other than that, I think this stage might be no, it's F. What am I saying? Maybe I'm thinking of the Genesis port that is not that bad. With the SNES port, this is easily one of the hardest stages in the game. I don't know if it's the hardest stage. I still think the mall is a bit of a pain to get through, but it's still kind of difficult. Now, something interesting, in the Genesis version, you'll see these, like, pipes to go across. Well, I can't really call them pipes, but those steel lines. And it's pretty easy to get to that cave. But in the SNES version, it's actually, like, springs that immediately fall down when you try to jump on them. So if you do pay attention to the right, I don't even bother with that. Yeah, like, you can see those springs up there. And when you try to go on it, you barely have time to jump to the next one. So, they actually get on the... Okay, yeah, I didn't get it. So, I instead use Oblina's triple monster move. And if you jump at the right time, you can actually get into that opening without having to deal with the springs. So, I guess you can call it a skip in a sense, but it takes the same amount of time due to the animation speed. So, if you want to get to that part easily, just use Oblina's triple monster move. Now, if you look to the right, what you're supposed to do is activate that switch above the button. And then you want to avoid all of the openings except for the very last one that the fan points. That points up. And then you want to go in there. And you can see in the Genesis version there's more lock-up platforming to do. The worst part about this is that you have to use Oblina to get to the first one every time you fail this, so keep that in mind. There's none low enough to get... Like, there's no locker low enough that you can get to it with a regular jump. So yeah, you can actually avoid some of the lockers by just jumping over to the next one. And you can see me holding down to gauge the next jump. Or I should say the next time to fall. And yeah, for the Genesis port, it's really easy. Now, something interesting about the Genesis port is that and again, in the SNES port, you also have to do some more locker jumping. It is a bit more rough due to the floaty jumps, but it's not the worst thing ever. I think the part coming up with the SNES version is the worst. Now, in the Genesis version, you see these platforms, and, like, you saw that there was cameras earlier. There are supposed to be lasers here. Supposedly. But every single time I played the Genesis version, they're not there. Now, it is very possible that they never programmed it in. Because, in the SNES port, which I don't think you'll ever see it, when you get caught by the cameras, they will actually stop you in place. And, not only are the cameras bugged, I don't want to say they're bugged, but not only do the cameras not work in the Genesis port, they're kind of just there, they don't do anything. But in the Super Nintendo port, not only do the cameras actually stop you, which doesn't mean much, I think, but the SNES port has lasers, and I'll talk about those, and I don't mean the lasers that are like stationary, like the ones you saw earlier. You'll see what I mean in a bit. I'm getting ahead of myself. So, in the Sega Genesis port, I actually did make it to Simon, but I'm going to wait until the Super Nintendo port is done so that I can talk about the final boss of both versions back to back instead of like at the same time. So you can see me destroying the cameras. Like, I'm just making it, the stage is mostly the same except with some minor differences. But this is the difficult part. Now you go up these fans, and all of a sudden you hear this buzzing sound, right? Now I actually had to lower the volume drastically for this part. I don't know if I put an image up of what it looked like, but because the buzzing was just really loud. But that laser on the bottom will defeat you in one hit. And these next two platforms, you actually have to jump when they reach the bottom because they actually go low enough to the lasers and that you make contact. So you have to do some really careful platforming to avoid those lasers, dude. It is. Unless you practice it beforehand, it is very easy to lose plenty of lives there. But thankfully, that is the section I practiced the most, because even though this run was a little rough, like, I still practiced some of the more like, that was the one thing I was scared of the most, despite losing everywhere else. Like, at least I should say the second Moss stage and after. But yeah, these lasers are rough, dude. And the weird part is, I years ago I watched a speed run where someone, like, you know, someone was speed running it and the lasers weren't even there. And I mean, I don't want to assume they're cheating, no, but if they did find a way to deactivate it, which I don't think they ever mentioned it or figured it out, I could not figure out a way to deactivate it myself. Like, I was wondering, like, yo, is it like, do you have to not get caught by the cameras? Is this something you have to do in a previous stage? Do you have to, like, there was so many things I tried. Like, you can even bump into, like, for example, in the first part of Simon's house, you can actually bump into Simon and he will take a picture of you or whatever, and I thought that maybe that had something to do with it. Well, I actually got through that really smoothly. That part can usually take a while to get to, like, because of the jumping. But yeah, I do not know how to deactivate those lasers. It is crazy. Anyways, I should talk about the boss battle. So, Simon's pretty easy. All you have to do is, you see me using micro walks, like I'm tapping the D-pad. And once I see Simon, that's when I immediately walk to one side, hit the switch. And I think for the SNES version, you can only scare him in the dark. So I decided to just hit the switch to turn on the lights, do micro walks, and once I see him walk to either side, hit the switch to turn the lights dark again, then use a scare to deal damage. I think it takes about 7 scares to defeat him, maybe more if I'm not mistaken, or maybe less. And again, just use micro walks, make sure the lights are on, turn them off by hitting the switch by pressing down, and then use a scare. Yeah, I think he's 1 scare away from being defeated. Wow. Yeah, I remember I had to go back to turn the lights, and now there's just 1 hit left, and that will be it. Again, pretty easy final boss considering how difficult this entire game was. Like, holy crap. And yeah, now we get to the Sega Genesis version. I already have 9 monster manuals, which I don't think is enough. And there's even a monster manual right there when you get into this part. And that's something I did forget to mention. So, you saw earlier that the small robots was like, the cool part about the Genesis version, you can actually, like, scare him whether the lights are on or off. So you see me doing that a lot. And I'm using the jump scare because it has less recovery frames, which is really good. But yeah, earlier you saw the small robot shooting nets or whatever. Whenever you get caught by a net, you have to perform a scare to get out of it. And thankfully it doesn't cost a monster manual, so it's not too bad. Like, it just wastes time really. And against Simon, it can cost you a hit point if he hits you while you're trapped. Now, to get monster manuals is not like in the Super Nintendo port. You didn't see me run out, but when you run out of monster manuals in the Super Nintendo version, it would just pop up. One will pop up in the middle. But for the Sega Genesis port, you actually have to hit them out of Simon. And to do this, you have to turn on or off the lights. And it'll make him run away. But depending on how you time it, you can instantly turn on or off the lights again, and then hit him again. And by repeating this, you can make multiple monster manuals pop out, which is, it pretty much speeds up the process. You don't have to do it, but if you want to get through this fight faster, you can do it. And yeah, there we go. That is our monsters for both the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo. Now coming up will be the ending for the Genesis version first, aka my favorite version. Congratulations, my pre-tech scratchers, you have done well. I'm too late to do a Grombo impression. Allow me to present you with this graduation certificate. But if you haven't seen the show, all of these characters are really cool. You are in fact real monsters. Like, go out there and show me what you can do. Hey, you get a certificate. Awesome. And now for the Super Nintendo ending coming up. And yep, this was actually my first time completing the game on Nightmare mode, especially. Well, because when you beat the game on Nightmare mode, you also get the achievement for scary mode. So, if you are going for the achievements, you might as well start on Nightmare mode. And I'm pretty sure saving and using rewind doesn't lock the achievements. So if you want to like cheat your way through it, you can. You can probably get the achievements really easily. So that's another option too. And hey, that's right. Oblina's about to say the thing. Hold up. It's coming up. Just listen closely.
Monster.
What'd you say?
Nonsense! Nonsense!
Monster.
Oh, she said the thing. She said nonsense. Oh, I'm just kidding. But yeah, and then when I first finished, I think the first few times I finished this game, I don't think I've ever heard her say that. Like maybe I just missed it and didn't realize, but yeah, this game does have a lot of voice lines in it, at least compared to the Sega Genesis version. And man, what do I even say at this point? This has been a wild ride. I just mean with Hour of Monsters in general, because so at this point I might as well talk about the games. I guess I'll talk about the show a little bit. I'll see. But I think right now I have both songs playing from both sides. So I think on the left ear is Genesis and on the right ear is the Super Nintendo, because both songs are pretty much the same. I think I had a slightly slow down the Genesis port in particular in terms of sound, because it was slightly faster. Anyways, Hour of Monsters. I'll talk about both games first in general, whether you're playing the Genesis version or the Super Nintendo version. They're both very difficult. They have some very nasty traps. They can be very frustrating to get through. And it makes it difficult to recommend, because even when you learn the controls, like, you know, performing the triple monster moves and all that, these games are just really, really difficult. And like, again, outside of the Splat Pack, the fact that you're supposed to get through these like hour-plus games without any save or password system it's quite gross. It is really gross, especially with how hard these games are. Yeah, they do have numerous one-ups, but I do not think that's a good substitute. It is gruelingly like difficult. But I mean, I don't even have to say anything about the port specifically. It's no question that I prefer the Genesis version. Controls matter to me a lot. Like, I really need good controls in a video game, and I think if I played the Super Nintendo version first, I probably would have preferred that. But because I grew up with the Genesis version, going to the Super Nintendo version felt like garbage. It felt like junk. I hated it. And I still do in a sense, but whichever version you prefer is fine. I'm not going to judge anyone or whatever by what version they like. If you like the Super Nintendo version more, that's fine. It does have its positives over the Genesis version, so I can see it. But there's no question in my mind that the Genesis version is better, in my opinion. In any case, I hope you enjoyed watching this long play. I really enjoyed playing these games again, and with that said, I'll see you later.
I'll be back.